Welcome. My name is Erica Ashton, and I'm the Festival Director for the Black Consciousness Festival. It gives me great pleasure to introduce another of our amazing conversations, expanding awareness of Blackness, making spaces new. Leading this conversation for us is Iva Grant-Williams, no stranger to the Black Consciousness Festival, as she's a member of the board of directors of the festival. Iva is a public finance professional with 20 years experience in New York City and state government. She's an advocate for women and children, a mentor for girls, and a volunteer doula. Ival, thank you for saying yes. Thanks for being here. Have a wonderful conversation.
Thank you. So it is a pleasure to be here this evening, or for some, I know it's afternoon or maybe morning, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining us. Again, it's just such a pleasure to be here, to have this conversation about creating new spaces and creating spaces for Blackness. Blackness is rich, it's powerful. It's amazing, it's dynamic, it's never ending. And to have a space that is filled with it is like no other. So we are going to have a conversation with a few individuals who have been working diligently to create spaces of Blackness. And it is amazing what they have been able to accomplish within a pretty short period of time. But they have been working and working and working to establish these spaces, whether it be through the creation of audiobooks and publishing of Black pieces from Black authors, or setting up a bookstore with books filled with pictures of Black characters written by Black authors. It is just rich what they have been doing. So we're going to welcome Clint and Luke and Nika to this conversation. Welcome. Hello, hello, hello.
Good night, everyone.
So everyone knows who you are. So we're going to jump right into our conversation. So on my screen, I'm seeing Clint, I'm seeing Nika, and I'm seeing Luke. And I think we'll just give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and just talk a little bit about your individual project that involves creating a Black space. And then we'll continue from there. So I think I'll start with my sister here. Please introduce yourself and the full pronunciation of your beautiful name.
Hello, good night, everyone. My name is Nika Ruiz Montalvo, and I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. Just to tell you a bit about myself, I am a career banker, been working in banking for more than 20 years. And last year, after what happened with George Floyd, it really affected me. I felt very sad to think that that's the world my son is growing up in. You know, it's like a world where people who look like him are treated like they don't matter and just murdered in broad daylight by a police officer who's supposed to protect them instead of killing them. So I thought I just really wanted to do something positive for my community, for my son and all children in Trinidad who look like him, just to feel more affirmed and validated and grow up with a strong sense of self and a strong level of self-esteem that they can do anything and be anything, and that they are valuable and important, that they do matter. So I took a trip to a couple local bookstores and looking for books with characters who look like my son. Couldn't find many. So I just decided to do some research and start my own store. So that's here we are a year later, and I have my own children's bookstore focused on children's books with Black characters.
And so you make that sound so easy, right? So I just decided to just open up my own bookstore. I love it. I love it. Okay, Clint, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, good evening again, everyone. I am from St. Lucia, 28 years old. I teach by profession, also an IT professional, but my true love basically lies with Black culture and Black history. I manage a page, Caribbean Rising, on Instagram and Facebook. And that basically just started from conversations that I would have with my friends. So they may look at us as being kind of weird for our age because we are so caught up in the Black history and the Black culture. And I remember one of my friends actually saying that, there was a certain individual, and he asked that question on Facebook, like, who was this individual? And then nobody was able to answer. And that really struck me because it was like, he's like one of our cultural icons. And then the majority of young people or people in my age group would not know. So that really drove me to go ahead and start this page where I would try to highlight, these people who have done so much for us. And I try to do a lot more just to entertain it. And the response that I've been getting is amazing so far. So that's motivation for me.
Yes, yes. And thank you for, taking that idea that came to you just while in just usual conversation, and you took it to such a higher height, just took it to a whole different level. Caribbean Rising is truly amazing. It's just beautiful to be able to scroll through and see what has been created, how you've taken, information that or history that we wouldn't normally find on a day-to-day basis, and you've put it right there in front of us to access. So thank you for that. Luke, it's your turn now.
Well, good evening, everybody. Sorry, I was having a little technical difficulties earlier, but hopefully you all can hear me.
We can, nice and clear, and you're bright over there. Good lighting.
Hey, shine bright like a diamond. So my name's Luke Cadet, or Lukens Cadet, but everybody knows me as Luke. I'm born in Haiti, grew up here in the States, and my background is in technology. I got my degree in computer information systems, and I've been doing project management, product management work for the most part throughout my career. And back in 2015, I was on the journey similar to what Clint spoke about, of trying to find and learn more history, because here in the States specifically, they always start off Black history with slavery. And I know that for a fact there was a way more history to us as a people prior to slavery. So I was really searching for books that spoke about what was our culture and what was our history prior to us being enslaved and brought to this hemisphere. And I was listening to a lot of audiobooks, a lot of entrepreneurial books at the time as well. So it was a mix of entrepreneurial self-help books and pro-black books. But what I found was that a lot of the books that I liked, that I wanted to read, that I know were out there, they weren't in audiobook format. And I'll be honest, I just started my career and I didn't have time to read 400-page, 600-page books, because some of these books are huge. So I was trying to find them on these platforms, and I couldn't find any of them. I couldn't find They Came Before Columbus. I couldn't find that in audiobook format. I couldn't find The Destruction of Black Civilization. I couldn't find that in audiobook format. So
You went on mute, Luke. Try again. You're still on mute. So I'm thinking, I'm listening to Luke as he describes, looking for these books. And I must say, Clint, Nika, have either of you listened to an audiobook?
No, I've never listened to an audiobook.
Okay, Clint, what about you?
Yeah, I'm an audiobook guy. I take in a lot because it's a lot. You can do so much while you listen to the book. So that's my go-to.
Yes. And so for Luke, what he's talking about and his initiative, the work that he's done, I know he left us, he's going to come right back. He's been able to find tons of books and actually create audiobooks. And it's wonderful. I mean, Clint, I don't know about you, but when I'm listening to an audiobook and I hear a Black voice, for the character, it just comes alive for you, right? And sometimes I will share audiobooks with my children, and they like reading, but it's not something that they seek after as much as I would like them to, right? But when they're listening to a story and they hear the laughter, right, of children or the characters, and they hear the voices and the superhero, whatever, right? And they hear that Black voice, it does something for them. They keep their earphones on. They listen to the whole thing. I have to tell them, take it off, right? It's late at night and they're sitting there with their earphones and they're listening to the story, right? So there's something powerful. There's an energy that we bring. And so even with the audiobook, you see how when we are able to create that space and bring ourselves into the space without apology, how dynamic it is. So the both of you, for right now, because I know Luke is coming back, you have created these spaces. Talk about what motivated you. Nika, I know that you were looking for these books and it was a little hard to find and so on, but talk a little bit more, either one of you, about what motivated you. How did you get started?
Okay, well, what motivated me was that I have a deep love for reading. And I know reading is very important. Barack Obama says reading makes all other learning possible. So we need to get books into our children's hands early and often. So I've been reading books to my son since he was about 3 days old. So, and just when that happened with George Floyd, it just really said, it made me think that I need to do something. I need to do something positive for my community so the next generation can grow up feelings if they matter. Because I grew up reading every book you could find. Enid Blyton, Judy Blume, Sweet Valley High, Nancy Drew. And in none of these books was there ever a character that looked like me, that had braids, that had, a flat nose. Everyone had freckles and blue eyes and brown hair, red hair, and I never saw myself in those characters because I just don't have those features. I'm just not Caucasian. And it made me feel, I always felt kind of left out. I'd read books and I loved them. I love Nancy Drew, Sweet Valley High. I still remember the stories because I was a crazy reader when I was young. But I always felt a little bit left out and a little bit invisible. Because I kind of character in the book have braids or a nose like mine or lips like mine, or brown eyes. Why aren't brown eyes praised as beautiful? Why aren't kinky hair? Why isn't kinky hair praised as beautiful? Why is those freckles and red hair? So I always felt left out. And I said, that was then. I mean, I do have self-esteem, not like it ruined me for life, but if I could do better for my son and for other children in Trinidad and Tobago, then I will.
Right. And, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking that here it is, someone, there might be viewers who will say, well, wait a minute, you're in a country filled with people of color. Why would you need to go out of your way to open a bookstore with books written by people of color, with characters and illustrations of characters of color? Why do you think that is?
Okay, well, Trinidad, our demographics are quite unique for the Caribbean. We're about 1% Caucasian, maybe less than 0.5% Chinese, and the rest of our community is either African or Indian or a mix of the two, or some other kind of mix. We have Hispanics as well. So we are a very diverse multicultural country. But yet when you go into the children's section of a bookstore, you would never imagine that because the vast majority of children's books are either Caucasian characters or animal characters. And when I did my research, based on US publishing statistics, in children's books, more than 50% of characters are white. About 27% of characters are either animals or trucks or cars or fruits, sometimes vegetables. And visible minorities make up 23% of characters. So Caucasian characters and animals and trucks and vegetable characters are more than all visible minorities combined. And you see that in our local bookstores because we do import a lot of our books from either England or United States. So those trends do show up in Trinidad as well, even though that we are 99% people of color. So that is why I saw a need for some effort to be put into that area.
Yes, yes. So Luke, I don't know if your audio is on, but we were talking about how amazing of an experience it is to hear the Black voice in an audiobook. So
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit about how you got to that point of doing what you're doing and maybe some of the challenges that you even faced to get it done?
Yeah. So note to self: be at home and don't have people calling you and blowing your phone up when you're trying to do something on your phone.
Yes, because it
But
takes your audio away.
God, yeah. So like I was saying, I was pissed off that I couldn't find these titles on an audiobook, right? And that's kind of what drove me to come up with the idea, because I always wanted to build a platform or do something that was going to help impact and uplift my community overall. And
Hmm.
it just kind of dawned on me, it's like, why don't we build our own platform, our own
Hmm.
audiobook platform? It'll be easily accessible. Um, it'll provide an education that our school systems are poor at. And ultimately, it's an economic stimulus, because I didn't know this at the time, but when we started this, the audiobook industry was about a $1.9 billion industry at the time globally,
Okay.
and now I believe it's like a or by the end of this year, it's supposed to be, it's projected to be a 3.2 global $1 billion industry,
Mm.
with it being I think a global $27 billion industry globally, or 15, one of those, by
Okay.
2030. And
Mm.
so I was like, okay, this could be an economic stimulus as well. So
Yes.
as far as challenges when we started, because I came with the idea, I reached out to my current co-founders, and we just went to work, started
Hmm.
researching. It took us about the 2.5 years of just researching, and trying to figure out, how do you do this, because there's no billboard that says, oh yeah, I'm a Black voice actor, hire me.
Right.
There's no billboards like that. So
Hmm.
how I started here locally is, I just started. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Meetup. There's this little.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I created a local Meetup group, because I was like, well, I don't know how else I'm gonna find people, so let me just create this little local Meetup group and see who actually would want to be a part of it, or learn
Okay.
about this. And before I ended up shutting it down, because it was really just me and I had to kind of focus more on the platform after a while,
Hmm.
I had about 900 people in that Meetup group. Uh,
Wow.
yes, it's nuts. The thing I don't like is that it wasn't the people I was looking for.
Okay.
I was like, man, all these white folks. Um, but but so I ultimately just started, I started reaching out to Facebook groups,
Hmm.
Black Facebook groups, like, hey, I started DMing dudes, like, hey man, what's up?
Good. You're interested. So what did you
You
what did you end up with? Like in the
uh,
end?
so at the end of the day, I just I found that a lot of people in our community, they're interested in doing this work. They just
Mm.
didn't know where to start. And so
Mm.
I started with people, for the few that did come to the meetup group that were pretty interested and intrigued, I started with them. So we built a home studio. I coached them through the process, and we started narrating some open source titles, because we didn't have any contracts yet.
So
So
you're talking about individuals who were the voices
yeah,
uh, reading
basically.
books.
Yeah, basically, because I feel like these industries, they make it seem like you need all this extra stuff, right? They make it seem
Mm.
like, oh, you need a big studio. Oh, you need all this coaching. In reality, you don't really need all that.
Hmm.
Um, and so I just got people from off the street that were interested in this field, and we found out how to we figured out how to go get through it. The good thing is that one of the reasons why it was easier, I think, is because a lot of the books that we started off with, and a
Mhm.
lot of the books that we push, they're
Mhm.
nonfiction, so they don't
Mm.
require like characters. You don't have
Right.
to get into character. You just have to be able to read. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So
Yes. Yes.
so
Yes.
so
Yes.
so that helped us a lot, because it was like, okay, yeah, and you don't know anything about voice acting, but do you know how to read? Oh, you know how to
But
read?
come on.
Great. Come on.
But you know
Let's
what?
let.
There's something, listen, let's not take it for granted. A lot of times I believe that we end up doing things as if it's ordinary. You know, it's like we have some kind of superpowers or something, right? We take something that is presented to the world as being very complicated, right? And seems to have so many barriers to entry, and we will grab onto it and just create it, right? And almost it almost comes across as if it's ordinary. That's how dynamic we are. I mean, look at Clint with Caribbean Rising. I mean, literally, you go from having a conversation with friends, you know, you talk a little history here and there, and all of a sudden, now you have this IG page with all of these followers, and you are literally providing history on a daily basis, right? And there are folks who have PhDs and every other degree you could think about, right? And they're standing in front of a classroom, or they're lecturing, or they have whatever, right? They're lecturing on TV or wherever. But talk to us a little bit about Caribbean Rising and what motivated you, and what, you know, maybe some of the challenges that you faced to get to where it is today.
All right. So, well, as I said, it basically sprung out of a conversation with one of my friends where he just basically he went ahead and he asked a question on Facebook. It was about a certain individual, St. Lucian, and the responses were like, well, there were no responses actually. And I bet I would say if it was another topic, you'd probably have a lot of people in our age group, because to be fair, we're young, and that's not usually something that's on our minds or at the forefront of what we speak, our conversations. But I found that, well, in that case, I had already, because I've been on this journey for a little while now, where I like to read. So if I hear a name pop up, or I hear an interesting story, I just go to Google and I go to Wikipedia, I go to Google, and I just try to get as much information as possible. So they kind of, there's a running joke on me because I Google every single thing. So it helps me in that I have a lot of facts, useful, useless, however you may want to see it. But in that case, I was able to go ahead and speak about the individual. I just can't remember who he was. But as I said, he was, I think he's probably our first chief minister, George Charles. So that was the question asked, and I was able to explain who he was, what he did, and why he was significant. And then later on, I actually met up with him, and we had that conversation. I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I've been saying. There needs to be a place where we can go to and get that information. And so this idea has been here for a while, but I just kind of I've slept on it. But since May, I got on board, and I've learned so much. I think that's the best thing for me.
Yes.
So as a teacher, I always say that the best way to learn is to teach. So by learning about these people, these places, or by teaching other people, I'm able to learn so much. And it's really is something that I enjoy doing. It's like a hobby. It's not a task. Like I'm excited to wake up to learn about a new leader, a new poet, a new place, some event. It really is fun. It's something that I enjoy doing. And so I'm just glad that this is just like the icing on the cake, that people actually like it, that people find it fulfilling, people find it rewarding rather. So yeah, I'll just keep going, as long as until we can find out everybody who was of significance in the Caribbean.
Yes, I like that. Just keep on going. You know, we have existed in spaces that were not really created for us, right? They were created for others, right? And for their descendants. And you know, we were a part of that creation, or we were used in that creation, but you know, here we are creating new spaces for ourselves and for our people and for our children and for the next generation. And so there's a lot to say about that. This is not ordinary, right? So yes, you created an IG page, and Luke brought some people together, and now they're, you know, creating these audiobooks, and Nika has her bookstore. She started online, but now she has a physical store that you can walk into and make these purchases. But let's talk about the people who would say this is reverse racism. Why are you doing this? Just for Black people and only Black voices and only Black authors and only Black characters in books. Like, it's not fair. Why are you doing this? Isn't this discrimination? So let's talk about that. What do you think? Anybody jump in?
Okay, well, I'll start on that one. When I launched a bookstore, I did get a few people asking me, like, why only Black characters? Why not also Chinese, Indian, and white and all types? And I started to me, that's like kind of like saying all lives matter. Like here I'm trying to address an issue that the Black community, especially children in the Black community, as young as 3 years old, sometimes say, "Oh, mommy, I want straight hair. I don't like my hair," or "I want, I wish I had blue eyes." It's just there is an issue that Black children have had for centuries, and that we don't always like ourselves as much as we should. So that's what I'm trying to address. And I would say, like, to any accusations of reverse racism, I would say, well, would you call someone a racist for opening up a Chinese restaurant? Would you call someone a racist for opening up a Lebanese restaurant? Like, why is it that when a Black person does something for his own community, that's considered to be a negative thing?
Right. You are shaking your head, Clint. What you thinking?
I actually definitely agree. I definitely agree with Nika. Something that I find difficult down here, and this is why I love Look Your Initiative, is because it's so difficult to get literature on Black history. It's like there's one or two people, maybe more, but then they like the plug because you go to them for everything, and that's just that. But you probably go into a bookstore and you get offers from North America, from England. So that is definitely something that needs to be addressed. And if they might want to think that is reverse racism, we know that there's nothing wrong with wanting to know our story as told by our people, because that's the only way we can learn. So
Yes.
I would never subscribe to that reverse racism.
So Luke,
Yeah.
the 900 people, right? How do you filter and sift through the 900 people?
So I wanted to touch on the reverse racism, and then
Oh yes,
I'll touch
sure.
on that.
Go ahead.
So when it comes to the whole reverse racism, I don't think Black. I mean, people have said this before, but Black people can't be racist because we don't control any of the systemic. We don't have any systemic control, right? Like
Very true.
I can't keep you from entering my neighborhood, which is why you have gentrification running wild. You know what I
Yes.
mean? I can't control what's being taught in my school system, which is why you have critical race theory being debated and
Yes.
history being kept out of schools. So, from an institutional standpoint, we don't really have the power, at least here in the States, to be racist. And the second thing
Agreed.
is, I think I can speak from experience based on the work that I'm doing with this audiobook and these publishers, as Nika mentioned earlier. I'm personally going through the audiobooks that we receive from these major publishers, because we just got some distribution contracts with some of the major publishers, right? And I'm going through and picking what books we want on our platform, because
Right.
we don't care for some of y'all stuff. So so as I'm going through, like, I'll give you an example for, like, Macmillan, for example, right? They sent us an Excel spreadsheet of over 3,000 titles, right?
Okay.
Out of those 3,000 titles, after I curated it down, only 200 or so were authors of color, not just Black authors. Everything else that wasn't white,
Yes.
only 200 out of the 3,000.
Mm.
That's almost 90 something. What's that? 98%, 99%
Right.
of
Right.
their audiobook catalog is white.
Mm.
So, pardon my French, but fuck you and your reverse racism.
Right.
How
Right.
are we doing reverse racism when the equity in these industries are so racially monopolized?
Yes.
You get what I'm
Yes.
saying? Like, that's
Yes.
I like using that term, because a lot of these industries, they're racially monopolized. They're
Yes.
monopolized by white folks, and they want to try to use reverse racism as a way to keep us from doing things for ourselves. No, I'm not
Yes.
doing that.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, how did I do that? I DM'd all the Black people that were in the group, like, yo. Like, I I need y'all to come through because I'm doing this
Yes.
for y'all specifically. But you know, ultimately, even though we had a few, it wasn't. Some of our people, it takes them a while to start engaging. So I was like, you know what? It's only me actually here, located in San Antonio, that's doing this by myself. I don't really have a lot of support. I have to focus on building this platform. So I stopped doing the group and I just went online. And social media is your friend, Instagram and everything. And we were able to. Now we have over 300 narrators of color,
Nice.
primarily Black. So hope that answered the question.
No, you definitely did answer the question. I mean, when we talk about what is racism, right? And, when you mix discrimination of any type with some power, you bring it together, then it gives you an opportunity to systemically, intentionally suppress and oppress a specific group of people, right? And if you can't do that, then you can't really be racist. But that's just me talking. I don't want to be on a soapbox. So when you're creating spaces or you're creating these new spaces of Blackness, it's really more about survival, right? Because what I'm hearing is I want to make sure that this information is available. I want to make sure that these books are readily available. And that's not racism, right? And it's actually even providing resources to those who may want to learn more about who we are. So yeah, I don't subscribe to the reverse racism theory either. Clint, can you talk a little bit about the engagement on Instagram? Who's liking, who's reading, who's commenting, who's DMing? What's going on there?
Okay, so it's actually I would say diverse. I have both men and women
Okay.
commenting. They're usually older. Well, when I say older, for G, that's sorry, that's by my standards, right? So above, let's say above 25, above
Okay.
25. Yeah, and they usually just very like a lot of people. They like, wow, I didn't know that, or I love that. And what has helped me is I'll have to give a shout out to Fiona Compton and her page. It's New York Caribbean. So she actually reposted a few of my posts, and that just you have she has like thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers. So that just it's like a broad audience was able to see. And then you have a lot of people commenting, DMing me, just saying that they really like the content and they're learning. So that's really my motivation. I think what I really would like though, or my main goal is to have young people. So when I say young, like from say 16 teenagers to at least notice these stories, because I the thing I take from it is it empowers me. It empowers me to know that somebody who probably came from a really harsh background was able to succeed in some area of life and to change the lives of many people, because the majority of people that I focus on right now are like say political leaders or leaders or people with who introduce some way of thinking, and so they basically are able to impact a lot of people. And I think that this is something that can inspire young people to be a positive positive role model or positive image to the young people. So that's
Yeah.
really my goal, and that's what I've been dealing with.
Yes. When you are, what I want to say, what discourages you, or do you get discouraged?
Definitely, if I probably do a post and I'm like, yeah, this is a good one, this is great, and then the engagement is low. I mean, it's not about the engagement or the likes, I should say, but it would be like, all right, so why did this one do so well as opposed to that one? And so I wouldn't say that it discourages me, because like I said, I do this just for the love of it, but it would make me think. So I want to create content. As a content creator, I guess I can consider myself that
Yes,
that
of course.
that that would that people would want to engage with, that people like, that people enjoy, that people find, that it's teaching them something new. So that's my aim. So if I see that the engagement is low, then it would kind of have me on edge. But as I said, I keep going, and I just want to keep learning and keep teaching.
Yes, yes. Nika, what about you with the sales? You know, do you ever find a book and you feel like, oh my gosh, they're gonna love this, and then you're like, oh, no one's buying it. What's going on?
Well, I started this business in the middle of a pandemic, so that
Ah,
things have been quite tough.
mhm.
So even the online sales, sales were never very high, and even now the physical stores, things are still quite slow. But it's
Okay.
something I'm just very, very passionate about it, and I'm just very determined. And I know that any business that starts in a pandemic it will face an uphill battle, and so I am facing that battle, but I'm determined every day to
Mhm.
make this succeed. I really want to change the way Black children especially see themselves. What I do focus on is a lot of books with they focus on characters in STEAM roles, meaning science, technology, engineering, art, and math, because we
Okay.
are underrepresented in those fields globally. And I want
Yes.
Black children to see themselves as a future astronaut, a future engineer, a future surgeon. So I get excited about learning about those fields and seeing themselves in those fields. I want parents too to see their children in those fields and to push them towards those in those directions. So I'm more encouraged by my vision than discouraged by the slow sales from time to time.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Luke, what about you? What discourages you?
I don't know if I have too much discouragement, but I can piggyback off both Clint and Nika, because from a with Instagram standpoint, because I post a lot of them, I post all of our posts on our Instagram page,
Yes.
and I can understand the discouragement from that point of view, only because the information is so good, and the
Mm,
algorithms is not allowing more people to see it. And
mm,
so for me, it's not necessarily a discouragement; it's annoying because it's
yes.
like you're keeping people, you're keeping my audience from being able to really see
From
all this
accessing what
greatness
you
over here.
have. Right.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So it's like, but
Hmm.
it's because they want you to pay in order for you to get more, views or whatnot. So I wouldn't say it's discouraging; it's annoying. And as far as sales goes,
Mhm.
um, being an audiobook business, I know that the gorilla in the room is Audible, right?
Mhm.
And what's interesting, well, anyway, I'm trying not to veer off of the
Yes.
conversation,
No, it's
but
okay. Go where you gotta go. Go where you gotta go.
nah, I was saying, it's annoying because I saw them stalking our page a few years ago, and it inspired a lot of the stuff that they're doing now with Charlemagne and Kevin Hart and whatnot.
Mm,
Um, but um, but I think what's discouraging is that these these bigger companies, they have a lot of money,
mhm.
and they have a lot of money to buy our faces, not because they give a shit. I need to stop cursing. I'm sorry. Um, not because they
Just
care,
speak. Go ahead.
not because they care, but because they want to exploit our communities. And it's trendy. This pro-black stuff right now is trendy. You
It's
know,
the thing
this
to do.
it's trendy. In every single one of these industries, it's a trendy topic, right?
Mhm.
And so you have these companies that are worth millions, billions at times, that have gone that have always neglected our community. But the only time they see us is when they feel like they can make some money off of us, and they'll use our own people or celebrities in order to sell us the product. But when it comes time to give back, you don't see them giving back. You don't see them lobbying for laws that to stop killing black people. You have
Right.
all this money, Amazon, but y'all ain't lobbying for these police to stop killing us, right? That
Mhm.
ain't happening. You're not building any community centers in Chicago, are you? No, you're not.
Mhm.
But you're using your money to influence our community to support what you got going on when you don't really care. It's capitalism at the end of the day, and with the white supremacist face. You know what I mean? So if
Mhm.
anything's discouraging, it's discouraging to see these companies that have money to continue to exploit us and for us to continue to fall for it, knowing that they don't care.
Yes. Yes. I mean, we I mean, we know what's going on and we see it. And I'll say this, today there was a verdict that went out on the news. We're not going to turn the conversation into that, and I usually don't post on social media about things like that because I'm like, this is like an everyday thing. So I try to keep it positive and keep it happy. But for whatever reason today, it just got to me and I'm like, really? Not guilty again? And so earlier today, I was speaking to a friend of mine, two different people, both women, both have sons, and they were talking about how their sons wouldn't get up this morning. They wouldn't get up. Now, this is before the verdict, right? They wouldn't get up to go to school. Both teenagers. And so, we were kind of making light of it. We were laughing about it. And I said, you know what? Sometimes we come down hard on our boys. I said, but maybe they're fatigued. Like literally by the energy that is just constantly saying, you're not important. Your life is not important. And yes, we may have this banner that's all over the world right now that says Black Lives Matter. But the reality of the day to day is that it doesn't matter, right? So every time you get infused with it does matter, you get this not guilty verdict that says it sure the heck does not matter, right? So the bookstore, the Instagram page, the audiobooks, those are the messages that's saying, no, come over here, son, daughter, you do matter. And so we have to just keep pressing and pressing and pressing and pressing. When you talk about the responsibility that you have, it is great, so I did ask you, what discourages you, and you basically all said the same thing, which is that I'm not discouraged, right? Because you are razor focused and you know where you're headed and why you're doing it and how important it is. Let's talk a little bit about the elected officials around you and their awareness of what you're doing and their support for your initiative. Or is there support for your initiative? So what's your connection with your local elected officials, the people in the government, politicians? What's going on there? Everyone's face made I don't know.
Okay, well, I can just jump in and say that, well, Caribbean Rising is still very young.
Yes.
So there's not been any communication with any government as yet, and we just got a new government. They basically I think they had 100 days in office, like probably 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
It's still very young, but they say that they're youth oriented.
Okay.
I'm not one to vote. I voted once and I haven't ever since. And I know some people might say, it's your franchise and it's your right, but my personal stance is, like I said, if you go back, my very first post is Fidel Castro, because he's one of my favorite leaders, again, to stand up in the face of oppression. And though you might not agree with everything that he did in his country, he definitely did put his country in a good place, in my opinion, in terms of the literacy rate and being able to export doctors. I think there's like there's a stat that says Cuba has the most doctor per patient, the highest doctor per patient ratio in the Caribbean. So that's that. But I would definitely be willing to accept any support that they were to offer, for sure. I'm not one to stay away or yeah.
Okay. And what about you, Nika? You're on mute.
I've been in business for less than a year, and so I haven't had any contact with government officials related to my business. And since the schools are still shut down, I haven't really seen a point of reaching out to schools to try to get the interest in purchasing books from my store. So but what I will speak on, I know it's kind of slightly off topic, is the excitement of the parents and grandparents when they see the books, because most of the people they come to the store, like my age or older, have never seen a black out in a children's book, and they go wild when they see it. They get more excited than the children do. So sometimes I wonder if I'm doing this for the children or for their parents and grandparents.
For the generation that came before us.
Yes.
Yes, 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 yes. You know, there's this saying that we are our ancestors' pride and joy, right? Luke, what about you? Any interaction with elected officials? Anyone wanting to support what you're doing, or
And what
any engagement?
in context of supporting what we're doing?
Yes.
No, not yet, not quite.
Okay.
I think we've been trying to keep it on the low for a little bit.
Okay.
Well, for the first few years, we were keeping it on the low because I felt that with any great idea and success, and when you're very transparent about how you feel about things, you can become a target.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of history of that here in the States.
Yes.
So we were trying to keep it low, but we just started really making a little more noise and letting more people know that we're out there. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of support, you know, when that time comes and when I start making that outreach. But we've just been trying to focus on building the website and getting this app out. But once the app is out, which it should be out here in the next few months, we'll start
Nice.
really reaching out.
Wonderful, wonderful. So what would you say to folks who may have an idea, they're thinking about it, what advice would you give them for how to move forward? And it's not just about, you know, starting a business per se, but this is all part of a movement, right? For creating these spaces where Blackness resides and is nurtured and advocated for and encouraged and all of those good things. So what advice would you give them? Anyone?
I think for me, the first thing I would say is we need to start working together more.
Okay.
We need to start taking these walls down and acting like we can't talk to each other and work together and collaborate with one another. And we need to stop that. You know, there's a sister in Ghana. We spoke. She just built an audiobook platform in Ghana. It's called Audiobooks. And so being honest and transparent, my initial mentality was like, oh, that's competition. You know what I mean? And I had to check myself. I had to tell myself, like, bro, why do you see this sister as competition? Like, why? And I told her that when we spoke on WhatsApp. I was like, listen, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna be real. I saw you as competition, and I ain't want to really rock with you. But I had to get out of this colonized mentality where we see each other as competition. When at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who wins as long as we win. Right? And so just working together and just trying to collaborate with one another, I think that to me is probably the number one step forward.
Absolutely. I mean, we know that colonialism definitely has an impact on how we see the world, right? And it impacts just, you know, when a thought comes to mind, and it could be brilliance, and we take a minute, right, to kind of ponder much longer than some other folks would. And it's not necessarily about risk taking, but it's about understanding that we own our brilliance, right? And there's definitely an impact of the colonial sort of mentality and environment that we've all been exposed to, that we've all lived through, even today. So maybe Clint or Nika, if you can speak to that, you know, living in the Caribbean currently, and how that impacts you, and what advice you would give to someone who has an idea about creating a Black space.
Well, I would say that, you know, like, keep your eyes focused on the end, like the result that you want to have. Like, I read somewhere recently that if you're trying to tackle a problem that you can solve in your lifetime, you're thinking too small. So you only need to tackle a problem that we know will exist long after we die and for many generations going forward, because you have to think big. You know, I think like Nelson Mandela, he thought big. He thought he's going to topple apartheid. He didn't think small, I'm going to just change this one little law. He said, no, I'm going to topple apartheid completely. And he kept a laser focus on that, and he achieved it. But did he resolve racial inequalities in South Africa? No, he didn't. That still continues. But he focused on what he could do in his lifetime to make a dent in that problem. And you all need to have that same mentality. Like, the problem of injustice towards Blacks and racism and low self-esteem and low self-worth has been on for generations. It will continue for long after we die and for many generations to come. But we need to use our time, use every day of our time on this earth to tackle that problem in a positive, creative, constructive way.
Yes. I mean, the fact that we're even here on this platform, right, as a part of a festival called the Black Consciousness Festival that doesn't have millions of dollars of sponsorship. And listen, we are 4 regular people right here. Dynamic, right? But regular folks, seriously, right? And we took the time out to say, you know what, we're going to spend this hour having this discussion because we know it's going to end up in places that thousands of people will get to see and hear way beyond today, way beyond next week, way beyond even next month, right? I don't know about you, but sometimes I go on YouTube and I find videos from 10 years ago, right? 5 years ago. So this is going to be there and it's going to live on for quite some time. So when you're talking about toppling over apartheid, right? He may have thought about it and that was his vision and his goal, but didn't expect it to happen in his lifetime, right? But we here now can live and see the result of the work that he did. So Clint, what about you? And from the St. Lucian perspective of how, whatever you have experienced there in your homeland might be impacting folks who have ideas for creating these spaces.
So definitely I'd echo Luke and Nika and just say go for it. Get started. That was my challenge that I had to overcome getting started. But as soon as I did, it was like you have the momentum, so you just keep going. And I also want to come back to Luke's point where he said that you would see probably someone doing something similar to what you're doing, your initiative, and probably be of the opinion that, hey, that's competition. But as he said correctly, you check yourself and you're like, no, that's not what it is. And in my case, it's like the more pages the more pages or more outlets giving this information, it's like it's the better for me because I learn more and I enjoy reading so much. As I said, Know Your Caribbean, I enjoy reading her posts. It's like so much information. There was a post that I put today about the birthplace of Napoleon Bonaparte's first wife, right, Empress Josephine, and she was able to just jump in. So yeah, it's debated. So some people say it's Martinique, some people say it's St. Lucia, and then she was just able to just come in and give her knowledge or her understanding and say that, so she was probably born here. Well, that's one account, and then she migrated over to Martinique, and that's why I would never have an issue with pages doing these things because it's like you learn so many perspectives. And as I said, as a teacher, I love to learn. So definitely I would advise anyone who is doing something like this to just go for it. And I also want to big up the Black Consciousness Festival for having something like this. I didn't know what it was about, but the more I learn about it is basically the more I want to learn, the more I want to be engaged with it. So big up to all of you who are doing this. It's a wonderful initiative, and I hope that it continues for my lifetime.
Yes. Thank you for sending that energy out. No, this is amazing that we are able to get together on this platform and have this conversation. I definitely think that there are going to be folks who are going to look and listen, and they're going to think of their own idea, or take the idea that they already have, and they're going to run with it. We have community here. This is community. We are a group of people who we don't know a whole lot about each other. We don't go way back 10, 15, 20 years of friendship, but we're here talking to each other, very comfortable, right? Because that's just what we bring, right? And that is Blackness. That is the dynamic piece of it. So let's just close out by talking a little bit about community and how we hold ourselves accountable to ourselves and to our community. We have created sense of community just here in this conversation, and you're definitely doing that through your initiatives. racism does not care about community. It dismantles community. It's anti-community, right? Colonialism is as well. And so talk a little bit about community and how your work that you're doing supports community.
I guess I'll start off. I'll kick it off. One, let me just shout out Know Your Caribbean as well. That sister is
Yes,
dope. She's dope as hell, man. So
I love it.
uh,
Yes.
shout out to her and shout out to you all for putting this
Mhm.
festival together for sure. I think for us, I mean, community is actually in the name. It's the name of our platform. Abantu means people and or community in the Zulu language,
Mhm.
and that's essentially the reason why we named our platform Abantu, because for us it was about the people, it was about the community, and that's kind of what we always represented. So it's literally ingrained in our name. The second thing is really just finding ways to push out more of our stories, and more of our narratives via our voices, because nobody really knows our stories like us. And when it comes to voice acting and voiceover, nobody can really connect to those stories like us. It's a different type of cry. It's a different type of emotion. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
I think by creating those type of creating a platform where people can actually leverage to listen to these titles and debate and talk about them, I think that's a form of community building in itself. And plus, we're talking to a whole bunch of people, not only just here in the States, but in the Caribbean, on the continent. We have a whole
Yes.
bunch of people that we're looking to partner with here on the continent, in the UK. There was a brother in Japan. He found us, and I was like, bro,
Nice.
I didn't even know they had black folks in Japan like that. But I'm here.
We're everywhere. Come on now.
Yo, for real. I was like, bro, what the hell you doing out there? But I think that energy is just a part of who we are as a platform, and we try to do that every day, and also by participating in the actual community. So,
Mhm.
not to sound too long-winded, I think it's important and critical. Yeah, we're building businesses and we're building platforms. That's great, but I think we have to always remember the actual local community work that needs to be had. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like going out there and feeding the homeless population that's in your community. Like me, for example,
Absolutely.
during the Haitian crisis here on the Texas border, I went
Mhm.
I actually went to a place and I was like, you know what, my Haitian people need me. I'm gonna go
Mhm.
and I'm gonna make sure that I can give them whatever help I can give them. And a lot of them, they felt at home because this whole time they've been speaking Spanish, and so when they saw
Mhm.
me, they were speaking Spanish still, and I'm like, no, I'm speaking Creole to them. I'm like, no,
Wow.
like
Oh,
speak Creole. You're home. You can speak Creole.
yes.
You know what I
Yes.
mean? And I just saw their faces light
Mhm.
up, during so I think it's also important for us to not lose sight on the actual local community
Mhm.
that we come from.
Yes, yes, yes. There's definitely community when you see yourself, you feel yourself. Just listening to Nneka, I'm like, oh, she's from Trinidad, a young woman. She's a mom. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to buy her books. I have to buy her books. Like, because I'm like, look at her here. I mean, come on, seriously. And you feel that vibe and that connection, right? Instantaneously. So that too is community. Literally, that is community. When I go on the various IG pages, I feel like that's my little family, that's my little community, that's my people. So if I go to work and there's no one looking like me in the meeting room, that's okay, because when I dip down in my phone, I have all my people right there. So all of that is community. Um, Anything that you would like to leave for the audience? Anything else that you would like to add? It could come out of left field. It's okay.
Well, I want to say on a bill on how colonialism and racism has divided us as a community. You talk
Yes.
about good hair and bad hair, light skin
Mm,
and dark skin, and I think that's something we need to get past. That even happens within families. Sisters and brothers are compared by who's light and who has good hair, has bad hair. Let's get past that. A lot of books might still focus on Afro hair appreciation. Appreciate your braids, appreciate your Afro, your puff. I want children to grow up liking themselves and liking their own hair, not subscribing to these silly divisions that have been put upon us because of our history of colonialism and so on. We need to just love ourselves, respect ourselves, and love each other, and really see ourselves as one community. And just love ourselves, love each other. That's what I would end with.
Yes, loving you, sis. Thank you. Clint, what do you want to leave us with?
Again, I just echo both Nika and Luke and say that I hope that yes, we probably have these virtual spaces where we're connected, but I hope it can actually be something that's more physical and, intimate, so that we can link up all around the Caribbean and the diaspora. We can exchange ideas, we can trade, we can do business, we can help each other. Marcus Garvey had that idea of the United States of Africa. The Caribbean could basically be the same thing. We should have free movement. We should have. It's like we should never look at each other like the enemy, because when we go to North America, to Europe, they watch us as the same person, whether we're from Trinidad or whether we're from St. Lucia. So just build a community and have each other's backs.
Yes, wonderful. Well, I thank you so much for taking the time out for this conversation. I know that it doesn't end here. We will continue this conversation within our communities, within our homes, with our family, with our friends, and we will certainly reconvene at another time in another space. And I thank you.
Thank
you so much for having us.
Thank you so much. Take care.
One last thing. How can we support y'all before we go? I'm sorry. How can I support you, Clint, Nika? How can I support y'all? How can our platform support y'all?
Well, it would help if you could recommend my page, get people to go on my page and get excited for the books and so on. Like right now, I don't ship internationally. I only do delivery within Trinidad and Tobago, because I want to build a space here before I seek to expand to other countries. So in terms of purchasing, you can't really support me there, but you can support me in terms of just following my page and maybe give me suggestions what I can do to make my page more exciting, to kind of get more people into the store and onto my online page as well.
Okay, cool. Could y'all share y'all WhatsApp, or if y'all have, I'm assuming y'all have WhatsApp.
Okay, my website is myreflectiontt.com, and my Facebook and Instagram handles are also myreflectiontt. So it's very easy.
I'm definitely on the. Could you send that to me?
We're gonna send it. We're definitely gonna send it, so that the four of us, we're a little group now, right? So
we're a little community now. So
yes, we are. So we're gonna have our own little WhatsApp group.
For sure. So if y'all can just send me a WhatsApp, Instagram, I wanna
definitely
shout everybody out and
definitely. Oh, this is beautiful. This is wonderful. I love it. St. Lucia, Trinidad, Texas, Brooklyn, all together. Poof, just like that, right?
For sure. It was good talking to you all.
Same,
Likewise.
Same, man.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.